And I'm going to present my screen for you. All right. So let me get started. For anybody who doesn't know who I am by now, my name is Laura Hunter, and I am the principal here at the Girls Leadership Academy of Wilmington. And tonight, our mission is to answer some questions. I'm not going to answer all your questions. There are going to be questions at the end of this that you still have. But I'm going to try to answer your questions as much as I possibly can so that you can make informed decisions moving forward. I would ask that as we move into this meeting, if you would please mute your microphone so that our rest of our meeting participants don't have feedback. That would be great. You absolutely can unmute when we get to the end of the meeting to ask any questions. If you have questions while we're in the meeting and you are joining us online, you can enter your questions in the chat feature and we will answer them. If you are calling in and something prompts a question, you can unmute yourself and ask, or you can email me. My email address is lhunter@glowacademy.net, and I will respond to those questions as quickly as I possibly can. So tonight we're going to talk about returning to learning versus returning to campus. I want to make sure that we're clear. Those are two different things. We're going to talk about our survey results. We're going to talk about protocols and procedures for students that will be returning to campus. And we're going to talk about any questions that you might have. All right. So the first part of this conversation is really related to that idea that returning to learning and returning to campus are two different things. I am so glad, Ms. Graham, that you were able to figure out how to get online. I just got your text. Thanks for reaching out. So returning to learning is this. 100% of our students that are enrolled in Glow Academy will return to learning with us on August 17th. There is no question about that. We are getting back into the business of learning on August 17th, and we'll continue that throughout our school year. Our ultimate goal is to be able to return all of our students who have chosen to be here to campus safely. But I want to be clear that it's going to be a process and it's going to take some time. It is not something that is immediately going to happen on August 17th. So we are all going to start learning together on August 17th. We are going to return to campus in a way that makes sense safely and through a staggered reentry process so that we can make sure that when we do return to campus, it's sustainable. We don't spike any kind of infections and have to immediately remove everybody from campus. We want to do this safely so that it can be sustainable in a scheduled way for your kids, and we don't have to go into this wonky schedule again. So I have already surveyed you. I sent out a survey about a week and a half ago and asked you several questions. Those predominantly in the survey was a question about learning paths for next year. And I gave you two options. Option one was on-site learning, which we are really calling blended learning. So it's a combination of traditional learning experiences on-site and virtual learning. So on-site learning doesn't necessarily mean all learning on-site, right? It's a blended experience. Option two was 100% GVA. I am not stepping foot on Glow Academy's campus, but I am learning with Glow Academy students and Glow Academy teachers online completely. So those two options were sent out to parents. What happened is a number of you chose option one, and then as more COVID information came out over the course of a week, you went back to the survey and you chose option two. So our data kind of shifted as more and more information came out. Here's what I need for you to know. Coursework expectation and rigor for Globe Virtual Academy students will be the same for Globe blended learning students. They are not different. They will be the same. So whether you're in option 1 group or option 2 group, the rigor and expectations are going to be the same. And let me be very clear, GVA expectations will significantly increase in terms of expectations for learning, because we have gotten past what we had to do last semester to get through the school year. And now it's game on. We're going to take it very seriously moving into the coming school year. So here's our promise. Our promise to you is that we 100% of the time are going to make informed, data-driven decisions about all of the pieces that come together to support your kiddo's academic learning, but also her transition potentially back on campus. We want to make informed, data-driven decisions and not just make arbitrary decisions because we want to keep everybody safe, because that's our primary goal. Safety for our students, staff, and families has to be paramount in a moment of a pandemic. If our staff gets sick, they can't support the learning of our students. If our families get sick, they can't support the learning of our students. We have to keep our staff and our families healthy so we can continue our students on their learning journey. So it's not just about one group, it's about a blend of all of those groups together, which means that we have to make sure that we are making informed decisions. Here's the other thing. Academic, social, and emotional learning will be supported all school year by all staff. That is non-negotiable. So we're not going to just focus on academics and not support social and emotional learning as we move forward. So here's the survey results, just really quickly. We had 236 responses to our survey, which was pretty amazing. We had, so that's over 2/3 of our student population, which is great right now. We had about 1/3 of our student population say that they want to do GVA only or online learning only. So about 33% of our student and families said they want to do 100% online. And we had about 2/3 or 66% of our student population say they want to do some sort of blended on-site learning. Let me be clear, and we're going to kind of talk about this as I dig down into the data. It is not surprising, I'm sure, for you to learn that our younger students had a stronger need for on-site learning than our older students. And that makes a lot of sense. We can trust well, I say this knowing many of our students. We can probably more likely trust our 16-year-olds to stay engaged with learning independently than we can our 11-year-olds. But certainly that's up for individual moments with students, to be sure. We surveyed about internet connectivity, and this was really critical data for us. We had over 90% of the survey respondents say that they have consistent Wi-Fi access at their house. We had about 10% say that their Wi-Fi connectivity was inconsistent or non-existent. This gives us an incredible opportunity to know that we have a very targeted group of students that we need to make sure get connectivity support from us so that 100% of our students have access to Wi-Fi at home to support their learning if they can't be here on campus. Let me just say that this number has significantly, the number of students with consistent Wi-Fi at their house has significantly increased because during GVA, the last quarter of our school year, we worked tirelessly to make sure that our families who needed Wi-Fi access got it. And so we have significantly narrowed this gap, which is a real testament very specifically to Jaleese Hadley on our campus because she worked really hard on this project. Then we surveyed about transportation. There were obviously 1/3 of the respondents who said we don't need transportation because we're going to do GVA only and we're not going to come to campus. Got it. Check. Interestingly enough, of the ones that said that they wanted to do blended learning, about 1/3 said they want bus transportation, about a third said they want car transportation, and about a third said they want to do a car sometimes and a bus sometimes. This is really important information for us because one of the real challenges to bringing students back on campus is figuring out bus transportation. The guidelines for bus transportation are very strict, and we have to put kids on a bus, one kid per seat, staggered across our buses. That means we significantly decrease the number of students that can be on a bus at any given time, and that ups the ante in terms of having to put together that plan. So, so this was important data for us. It helped us inform our next steps. Hi, Ms. Garza. We're glad to have you with us. So all of that is to say, Laura, get to the point. What's the plan? What are we going to do? So here's the plan. Here is what we are proposing to the GLOW School Board. Let me be very clear. Right now, this plan is a proposal. It has not been approved by our school board yet. Here's our plan. The first 2 weeks of school are about starting off together and starting strong. So for our high school students, this means that our class of 2023, that is our rising 10th graders, will start off strong with us on August 17th. Any student that is able to come to campus together with us on August 17th in the class of 2023, that is our about 65 high school 10th graders, will be welcomed on campus. They're going to get materials to set them up for success. They are going to celebrate friendships and community and see each other because they haven't seen each other in a really long time and they miss each other. They're going to practice on Canvas, getting into their courses, making sure it's all set up, making sure they have access, making sure that their passwords work and all of that stuff with teachers. And each of their teachers in their scheduled semester 1 classes are going to set expectations for learning. Then they're going to go home. And they're not going to come back to campus until the next week on August 24th. And all that week from August 17th, when they get started, August 18th, 19th, 20th, and 21st, they're going to be home and they're going to be engaging and learning. They're going to be getting started with work, and they are going to be practicing all the pieces that they need to practice and accessing all the pieces that they need to access. And when they come back on August 24th, we're going to check to see if they did it right. We're going to make sure that we answer all their questions. We're going to sit down individually with each kid and set first quarter goals and schedules. We're going to make sure that they are equipped with a plan of action to support their online learning. So week 1 is getting set up for success. Week 2 is a double check to make sure that they got it in week 1 and are able to be successful. Our class of 2024 will do that exact same thing, but they won't come until Friday, August 21st, and they will have their checkup with us on August 28th. That's our first 2 weeks of school plan. So high schoolers will come either, if you're the class of 2023, starting on August 17th, or class of 2024 on August 21st. Here's what will happen after that. After that, we're going to move into 3 phases. Again, this is proposed next steps. It needs to be voted on by the board, and the board will establish a timeline for this. So I'm proposing phases, but the timeline for these phases has not been established because there are a lot of other data points that we need to consider. Those data points are kind of changing right now because COVID-19 cases in our county are going up. So here's what's going to happen. Phase 1 will have students on campus 3 to 5 days a week in targeted small groups of students. These are a small group of students who have very specialized learning and academic needs. Let me be very clear. These might be students who have IEP plans or English language learner plans, or we're not successful in any of their classes last year and need specialized help in order to re-engage with learning in a much more concentrated way this school year in order to be successful. These are a very small, concentrated group of students. We will move into phase 2 at an established timeline that hasn't been established yet, and stagger reentry for our middle schoolers. So our middle schoolers will get a staggered reentry, and they will come in 2 groups. One group will come in on Monday and Tuesday. One group will come in on Thursday and Friday. And remote learning for everybody will be contained on Wednesdays so that we can deeply desanitize the building before we pull another group on campus. So that is what will happen with our middle schoolers. Phase 3 will be re-entry 2 days a week on a similar, probably, schedule. That allows for re-entry of our high school students. Now, let me just be very clear. We have an eye to the fact that that puts our high schoolers coming on campus in the last phase, and we know that they can't wait that long for some of their classes. So we are working on a specialized lab schedule for our high school students, especially for Q1, that'll allow our students, based on their high school schedule, to come on campus for labs. And when we're talking about labs, we're talking about labs for courses like biology, earth and environmental science, our STEM class, our culinary class, perhaps our art classes, Art 1 and Art 2. We're talking classes where they need to come and get materials. They need to utilize our campus facilities in order to do specialized kind of labs. We are working really hard to develop a lab schedule so that even though that phase in for our high school students is the last phase, they actually will be on campus more in phases 1 and 2 based on their schedule and their classes. We absolutely 100% want to make sure that our high school students are getting the support that they need, because these classes count towards graduation and their GPA, and we want to set them up for success. All right. So all of that framework is in place. So that's where our head is. That's our proposed plan. Now Ms. Garza is going to talk about what it all means academically.
Absolutely. So we are working really hard on our academic programs right now. And our academic program for next year, as Ms. Hunter discussed at the beginning of this meeting, while aligned, is still concretely vetted in a plan that's about all students. It's not geared towards COVID-19. So we have decided to adopt a new model for teaching and learning for this upcoming school year. And this is an enriched virtual blended model. This model is going to be the foundation for teaching and learning at Glow Academy. This model is not a Band-Aid approach to tackling remote learning. If anything, this is a sustainable approach, and it is our goal to take this moment of quarantine and use it as a nudge and an opportunity to create a sustainable model at Glow Academy that's going to set our girls up for 21st century skills that they need in a technology-driven world. So enriched virtual blended model happens whether you are on site or you are online. It is a model of teaching and learning. It doesn't matter where you are, but we'll talk about how it may look different depending on where you're getting your instruction. So first, let's just talk about what this academic model looks like for all students. So for all students, we're going to work through what it means in context to what we're learning, how we're accessing our course materials in Canvas, what that means for grading, and what that means for parent access as well. So first, let's just discuss what we're going to be learning. So let's start with curriculum. When the school year starts for students, our Fabulous Glow teachers will have already put in many hours of hard work to solidly map out and frame each course offered here at Glow Academy. Our courses have strategically mapped out units of study that are aligned with the North Carolina course of study and have a primary goal of creating meaningful and relevant experiences for all of our girls. And this is critically important at the high school level, that we have a solid game plan for what we're learning. And then we take those units, and we've been working really diligently and are continued to working, even starting with some training and professional development for teachers starting next week, and taking those units of study and mapping out those units into strategic, specific lessons that engage students and that challenge our students academically, because we are a college preparatory academy. We've taken it a step further, and in addition to planning the strategic lessons, teachers are pacing out, figuring out how much time it's going to take on a weekly pacing schedule, because in a blended, enriched environment, we will start and end our coursework on a Monday through Friday kind of game plan in the same way that we did in GVA. And we're mapping that piece out, considering all of the things in addition to COVID-19, like when report cards come out and when we have holidays and when there's potentially testing days. So we're mapping all those pieces out. And how are you going to know? Well, we gave out a survey at the end of this past year, and we asked questions really specific to GVA. And one of the strongest and most positive bits of feedback that you gave us was that in the GVA experience, you appreciated the fact that there was consistency between courses, that there were weekly announcements being pushed out about what type of learning was happening for the week, and that you knew what assignments were being graded and how much they were worth in context to that grade. So we're going to keep doing all those things, no matter where we're learning from. So we will have that structure. If there's a vaccine tomorrow and we all get to, come on campus, we're going to have that structure, and we're going to have that structure if we are online. In addition to that, we're going to continue to use the Canvas platform. Now, in the moment of first going into quarantine, which was a hard moment for everybody, we opted to use Canvas, and we did so using a basic free version of the program. And while this served our needs, there were some issues, like with logging in and having 18 different logins, and there were some issues. So we have upgraded our Canvas access so that we have sole administrative access. So if we've got issues logging in, I can get a kid logged in. Mr. Sorrells, who is our new virtual learning coordinator this school year in partnership with Teaching Some Courses, he can get you logged in. Like, we've got a lot of ways now to triage all of those technology issues that we had really in this first 2 weeks of online learning. So choosing to use Canvas, even if we were fully on site, does a few things for us. One, it houses all of our course materials so that we have access to them. Because even in the land where there is no COVID-19, there's still the flu, there's still getting my tonsils taken out, there's still hurricanes, there's still times when I need to access course materials, and for whatever reason, I can't be on campus. So let's keep doing that. In addition to that, there's communication information for parents and students to access their teachers with ease, and there's parent access to grades. So students will turn in their assignments into Canvas, and teachers will grade their assignments in Canvas, providing timely feedback, which has then allowed us to up our game even more. So we believe that students should know how to be successful, which is why we've gone a step further this school year as we're adopting this model. And we're going to increase our expectations for transparency by ensuring that any graded assignment that's not something like multiple choice, where I quite obviously can see that I missed B, right, is attached to a rubric provided to students ahead of time, so they know how to earn their grade. And then when it's graded, by its very nature, it's going to provide students with the feedback to be reflective and grow as learners. What is expected as learners shouldn't be a surprise, and we're going to make sure that we implement that. Last but not least, if your children are anything like my children, my oldest daughter, who I'm very proud of, who is in the U.S. Navy building computers at 19 years old, if you had asked me 2 years ago some questions about her ability to communicate to me about what was happening at school, well, we would have probably had a real sad conversation, because most of the time when asking her how school was for the day, it was fine, good, or a shrug. Or if I asked her how grades were, oh yeah, they're good. And it wasn't until there was some evident struggling going on that I knew exactly what type of help she needed. And that wasn't from lack of effort from the teachers. Our teaching staff does such a great job trying to meet the needs of our students. But it can be very challenging, because one of our goals, especially for our high schoolers, is to make sure that we are creating accountable, independent, responsible students. And so we go alongside them and do that struggle together. But as a parent, you often see things quicker because you know your kid better than anybody. So you have parent access to Canvas, which is another reason we've chosen to keep this platform, even if we are moving completely on site in that scenario, because you have access. And if you catch something first, then together we can work on a plan to make sure that everybody's academically successful. So that's what is happening for everybody. So what does this academic model look like on site? Well, let's kind of look through some pictures. So an enriched virtual model means that our face-to-face time is enriched with technology. That's what it means. So when we talk through, it looks like enhanced technology-based lessons. So we're learning, but we're using our technology and accessing in a way that enriches the lessons that are being taught on campus, in addition to some very traditional hands-on experience in classrooms in the same way that we've seen them before. You want to keep clicking, Ms. Hunter? The difference is those hands-on experiences and those opportunities will live with face masks, right? And social distancing. Specifically though, what will this model look like for online students? Remember that an enriched virtual model, that is a very specific type of blended learning. There are 6 types. This is one very specific type. They will still have a blended learning experience. And that means access to live teaching sessions weekly that happen on our campus. So even if students aren't on campus, teachers will be virtually providing live sessions, and they will be able to move into a place where they're having real collaborative conversations with their teachers and with their peers. They will have access to both on-site and online classmates, and they will have student support resources in a virtual environment. If that means college-bound access to our college-bound counselor and working through how to read our transcript, all of those pieces will be done and will continue to be done virtually if we can't be on site to get those things finished.
And so, as we talk about that, Ms. Garza has included some pictures from GBA so that you can be reminded, in case you didn't see it to begin with, what was happening. Ms. Garza, do you want to say anything about these?
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I probably should have told you to click while I was talking. I was just so amped up there, just excited, you know.
So reminder that in GBA, the connection will continue.
That's right.
All right.
But there are some pieces here that are really critical when it comes to understanding online learning. So apart from the model that we are crafting and framing, and as you could see with some of the documents that I've shared, we're being very meticulous in creating high quality teaching and learning for our students. Learning online is different, and we want to be transparent about that. When you learn online, even if you have live sessions, that learning oftentimes shifts, and that some of that content, some of that learning shifts from the control of the teacher to the control of the student. And then sometimes that might mean as parents. When live synchronous sessions are not happening, it's that there's flexibility, right? That you have the flexibility to choose the times that you're doing some of your online learning, the path in which you want to learn a new concept and how you want to research it, and sometimes even the location from where you want to complete the online work, whether that's inside or sitting outside on the back porch. no matter the choice, the coursework and the expectations for online students is the same for our on-site students. And that's critical for us to say, that our expectations are the same, online or on-site, so that as we move into our phases and plans to bring students back on campus, that we can do so seamlessly, and those expectations are already established across the board.
All right. So let's talk about what returning to campus will look like. It's going to look like this the first 2 weeks of school, and it's going to look like this as we move into our phases as well. So here's the plan. Number one, it's important to recognize that we're going to be following a lot of guidelines from a lot of places. So Governor Cooper is going to provide us guidance about reopening. He has already done that by saying we can open with a Plan B, hybrid Plan C model. He might make the decision between now and August 17th to say, oh, we're going with Plan C. That's okay. We have a plan for that, right? The CDC, North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services, Department of Public Instruction, New Hanover County Department for Public Health, all of those are places that give us recommendations and guidance about what to do on campus to keep people safe. As we approach the opening, we're going to continue to monitor and hear to those, know that those safety standards shift. We're continuing to keep our finger on the pulse of that, and we'll refine all of our protocols and policies as needed as new guidance emerges. So here's what's happening. Here on campus, holistically, staff and students will be required to wear face masks when they get here on campus, when they leave campus and get on a bus, they still need to wear face masks. They will wear face masks or face coverings in classrooms. And when they're outside, if they're not able to appropriately physically distance. So not if they don't have to wear them outside if they're able to appropriately physically distance, but if they're gonna be close to somebody, they need to be wearing a face mask. All adults on campus are required to wear face coverings as well. Our staff will, at minimum, wear face masks or face coverings, but some of our staff have chosen to wear face masks and a face shield, some goggles. We can level up, but the bare minimum requirement is face masks for all students and staff. All people coming on campus, students, staff, or very limited visitors will have to get their temperature checked when they get on campus. Just like you see Paula getting her temperature checked here just today because she was here for summer camp. So students and staff will all get their temperature checked, and they will all complete a daily health screening that allows for us to get a sense for COVID-19 exposure and head that off at the door before it enters our building. All non-essential visitors are going to be restricted from campus. So this is not a time for fundraising events, and this is not a time for tours on campus. In our classrooms, it is important for us to start by saying that we have a new building, and that means we have a new highly efficient HVAC system already established. This system is already positioned to move high quantities of air out of a classroom pretty quickly with enhanced efficient air filters. We are really ahead of the game in terms of getting able to move air pretty quickly in our building as opposed to older school facilities. Our students will be required to wear masks in classrooms. All our classrooms will have hand sanitizer and disinfecting wipes, and we'll be using them often in our school day. We're going to encourage and create opportunities for frequent hand washing for everybody, students and staff included. All our learning spaces will be thoroughly cleaned and disinfected each evening. We're going to clean and disinfect frequently throughout the day, utilizing students and staff to make sure we're doing that routinely. And most importantly, we will have one student per table or desk in classrooms. So we are pulling teacher spaces out of classrooms and moving them into offices. We are going to move students into classroom spaces, sitting one student per table or desk. That means that we will likely have no more than 10 students per classroom, likely less than that. On campus, we are up in our signage game, making sure appropriate signage is posted so that people can be visually reminded of how to move about this space safely, and lots of signage reminding kids and adults about masks and hand washing and distancing. Again, access to campus is going to be limited. We will have one entry and exit point on campus for students and staff, and that means that we will not have anybody inside the perimeter of our campus that has not gone through a temperature check and has not gone through the checklist for COVID-19. All of our large events will be virtual. That means parent advisory meetings, faculty meetings, parent university, back to school nights. Any large event that is scheduled will happen virtually, will not happen physically on campus. In our high school program, again, we're going to start out with a lab schedule that will support online learning. And we are working on this schedule, just like we're working on individual student schedules. That means that our high school students will flex on and off campus as needed for their courses. It will be routine, it will be set. You will be able to anticipate when your high schooler will need to be on campus in order to complete a lab for one of their specialized high school courses. We will publish it before school starts. We will provide transportation for students to get to and from campus. And likely that schedule will look a little bit different, so it won't be running through their whole schedule for the day. It'll likely be in the science lab for 3 hours doing a lab, right? It will be specialized moments on campus in order to support their learning in real hands-on ways. Our high school students will follow a schedule that limits class size to more than 10 students when they're able to come on campus. Again, all of those spaces will be designed to allow for physical distancing. We are going to strongly utilize our outdoor classrooms as much as possible. We're actually adding 2 more to expand our outdoor classrooms to 6, so we can get kids learning outside as opposed to just inside in those spaces. Again, all of our community events and assemblies will be delivered through virtual experiences. And Jaleese Hadley and another college-bound worker will continue to coordinate meetings with college admissions counselors, students, and parents, but we'll be doing so virtually. And I see Jaleese just actually joined us on the call. So I was just talking about you, Jaleese. And then student support personnel will continue to provide counseling and support to all of our students. For students that are here on campus, that will be in person. For students that are online, that will be online. But none of that will change. We will continue to support our kids. For those students that are coming on buses, temperature checks will happen before student boards the bus, as opposed to at the door of our school. So there will be likely 2 staff members on a bus at any given time, one driving the bus and one monitoring student COVID-19 questionnaire and temperature checks before students get on the bus. All students will have to wear face masks as well as staff on buses, and they'll be placed staggered seating. 1 student per seat, staggered every other seat, so that we're distancing students across the bus. Buses will be cleaned and disinfected after every route, and buses will run in accordance with our schedules on the school day. So we'll run our school bus routes to pick up kids at the beginning of the day and run them at the end of the day, as opposed to all over the course of a day. It could get complicated. We will not have on-site extracurricular programs next year, at least for the first semester. All of our after-school enrichment clubs and student activities will be conducted virtually. So if you're on Science Olympiad, we're going to still do Science Olympiad. It'll just be a virtual experience and not an in-person experience. However, we will continue our after-school program support for our working parents. Most especially, this is utilized by our middle school parents to provide after-school care for students that are on campus. so that our working parents can continue. This is something that I said to working parents in our middle school program. We are working really hard with community partners to provide extra wraparound supports for our working parents who have children who need to go somewhere in the school day, to make sure that their learning is continued to be supported if they can't be here on GLOW's campus. So more to come with that information. We will continue to provide meal services on campus. Our lunch periods will be staggered. Kids will not just eat in the cafe, they will eat in our outdoor spaces as well. So we'll spread them out. Let me be very clear. Kids will not be eating in classrooms. So if you've got to take your mask off to eat, it's probably not a good idea to do that in a classroom setting. We want to make sure we're even more spaced out and lots of distance and airflow to make that safe. Students will be able to bring lunch from home or get a hot meal on campus. We're going to have grab and go options for breakfast, so people coming on campus will be able to grab their breakfast and go to a really safe, kind of airy environment to eat. And all of our food service employees are going to wear face coverings and follow the even more enhanced safety protocols from the Department of Public Health in order to make sure we're safe. We're gonna, again, nothing about our program changes. We are gonna continue to offer developmentally appropriate programming for supporting social and emotional well-being of our students. We're gonna enhance that. That was something that we needed to do more of in the last quarter of last school year. And we're just transitioning, so now we've wrapped our heads around that. Our students will meet together virtually in their leadership advisory group, hopefully many times throughout the week. And our parent education opportunities and community events are going to continue. They'll just be virtual. Kathy Koch, are you on the call?
I am.
Awesome. Are you ready to talk Title I really quick?
Sure, I'll do it quick. First of all, I want to introduce myself. My name is Kathy Koch. I'm the Director of Operations and Administration. I joined full-time in April. Prior to that, I've been with GLOW since March 2016 on a kind of behind-the-scenes consulting financial situation. I've always done the Title I funds. So I want to give you a little bit of information about Title I. I'm going to go through it quickly, because I know you all are busy and it's almost 8 o'clock at night. But if you have any questions, please reach out to me. Title I is federal funding that's designed to make sure that we have a fair, equal, and significant opportunity to obtain a high quality education for all students, particularly economically disadvantaged students. The amount of funding is based on our academic or our socioeconomic, our low-income families. GLOW operates a school-wide Title I program, so we use the funding because we're a single school. We don't have to portion it out, give it out among schools, but we use the funding to benefit all of our students at GLOW. This is federal funds. The state sends the money to schools based on our percentage of low income. Go ahead. What I want to talk about tonight are parents' rights and your ability to chime in. You have the right to ask for meetings or trainings for your students, to review any of the school achievement data, to review and have input on the Title I parent involvement policy and stakeholder contract. So the parent involvement policy is located on our website. We review it every year, and it's a document that's designed for us to talk about how we're going to use how we're going to get our parents involved in our school. The stakeholder compact is a contract that's signed between you, your child, and your teacher every year. This is something at GLOW that's gone on every year, and we review it on a regular basis. The big thing is charter schools are only required to have 50% of their teachers licensed and certified. And so parents have a right to know that their children are being taught by highly qualified teachers and paraprofessionals. At GLOW, we make sure that 100% of our teachers are licensed and certified. So just to put you at ease, but you're always welcome to ask for that information. If you have any questions, you can contact Laura Page, our new Dean of Students, Askia, or myself, and I'm happy to answer questions.
All right. Thank you for attending that very brief Title I meeting with us. And now, what questions do you have for us? You can enter them into the chat, or you can unmute yourself and ask them. Is it truly possible that there are no questions?
Hello?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, hi. I was thinking about, and I kind of missed the first part of the meeting, I'm sorry, but I was thinking about whether or not a child could do staggered days doing online and face-to-face.
Ms. Garza, do you want to answer this question? I cannot hear you.
Huh? No,
Yes,
I
Ms.
think you, oh,
Cody. So the
yes.
answer to that is all of our high school students are going to start out pretty much online with some opportunities to come on campus for some labs. As we move into a phase where we're able to pull more and more students on campus, students will be able to be on campus more and more. Our goal on the outset of that phase in is to have students on campus at least 2 days a week. Obviously, our overarching goal is to get kids on campus as much as possible. But we are going to do that in a way that's safe for our staff and our students and our families, because we only want to go forward. We don't want to go forward in order to go back. So we want to do this in a very measured and planned kind of way. So our students will start, our high school students and most of our middle school students will start out online, and we'll phase them back onto campus as we're able. But if you start out with 100% GVA and you decide that it has become safe enough that you want to transition to blended on-site learning, that's okay. We're going to take each of those cases on a case-by-case basis and work with you, because that is what we do at GLOW. We work individually with students and parents to make sure their needs are being met.
Thank you. Beautiful. Thank you so much.
Of course.
My mic was off. I'm here now for any other questions.
So I'm going to go down the list. Abby Simpson says, how does PE work? Well, PE falls into that category of mostly virtual learning, especially for health. And then we will schedule labs for students to come on site and do the physical work if they're not able to do that physically at home. So some of the stuff with PE might be stuff that's about personal fitness activities that are able to be accomplished at home. But this would fall into the category of a lab course.
In addition, Ms. Hunter, it's a synchronous learning. So your PE teacher may join with you synchronously, as everyone does some virtual yoga. So there's opportunity to still be physically active.
Niobe is asking, will online only students also be going on the 17th and the 4th? I love that question. So you have options, right? Again, here at GLOW Academy, we're all about some options. So I really would love for online only students to come on those 2 days if they were able, so they could get in person support to get them started and set up for success. However, I'm not your parent. I'm not the parent of your kid. And I don't know all the other dynamics that are happening in your life. We also have some new students that have joined us that are not physically in the Wilmington area. So if you're not able to come, we will 100% include you in that learning experience online, and we'll make sure you're supported. But you definitely have the option to come this first 2 weeks of school, even if you're an online only student, in order to set yourself up for success. Uh, Luke's mom has asked, will there be an open house? And the answer to that is yeah, probably. We're going to host some virtual open house or virtual back to school nights for parents. So be on the lookout for that. What that looks like yet, we're not entirely sure because we're figuring this out. But yeah, we're going to have an open house. But open house, again, all community events like that will be online, not in person. Eva's mom, during the first week of school, the ninth graders start on Friday, no schoolwork before then. So, yes, I think the answer to that is yes. Their school year starts on that Friday and not necessarily on that Monday. We just had to parcel it out across a week in order to make sure that we were successfully getting kids started. But yeah, so their timeline kind of gets pushed back a little bit. Deborah's mom asks, when will the phase dates be announced? That's a great question. We're working really hard on that. The board is going to take into consideration a number of different factors in order to make those determinations. We don't want to make them in an arbitrary way. We want to make sure that we're making those decisions based on what's happening in our community. We also are really sensitive to the fact that parents need to make plans and kids need to make plans. So for our high school students, we are being very cognizant of the fact that you need a game plan. So we will absolutely pull kids on campus in a very safe way the first 2 weeks of school. And we will publish our lab schedule for our high school students before school starts. So you have a very concrete on-campus schedule for the first quarter of the school year. If we get to go to phase 3 before the end of the first quarter, that will modify. But if not, you will have your kids' game plan in your hands for at least through the middle of October.
I'm sorry. So could I plan on just being online at least through the first quarter?
I think so.
Okay.
I don't have a magic ball, but I think it's going to move slowly, not move rapidly, unless we show up with a vaccine next week, in which case the game changes, right? But I think that that's a healthy guess. But again, that is kids, our high schoolers coming on campus for routine labs throughout that first quarter, just not on a concrete every 2 days schedule. Does that make sense?
Right. Unless, of course, there are kids that wouldn't be coming in anyway because they would be at risk or whatever.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Unless they're in that phase 1 group. Yeah. Again, there was a question. Open house is typically when students receive schedules and get a first chance to meet students, especially for ninth graders who've been looping to meet their teachers. Yeah, you're exactly right. We are being very cognizant of some of those social pieces that are really hard in this land of kind of distancing. So we're being very strategic and making sure we're shaping those experiences. In their previous meeting, somebody asked about our new students who maybe haven't even are maybe coming in ninth grade or coming in 8th grade and haven't been a part. So we're gonna step away from these meetings, take that list of stuff, and really be strategic about making sure we're shaping those experiences. So you're right, our 8th graders that are moving into 9th grade get a really structured and seamless transition into their high school experience in a way that feels authentic and real, and they're able to connect with each other even if they're not on campus. Ms. Fletcher asks, will all students who have an IEP be on the phase 1 schedule, or is it based on their IEP? Ms. Fletcher, I will tell you that we are not making a holistic decision about that. It is based on the needs of the IEP and the kid. Every student that has a 504 plan or an IEP at our school will get a phone call from a GLOW personnel to discuss those individual needs. So be expecting a phone call from us if your kiddo has an IEP. Miss Air asks, are the students going to have a set school hours? Will the live online classes be certain scheduled times that are consistent? Ms. Garza, do you want to answer that question?
Yeah, absolutely. The answer is yes. So they have to be consistent for many reasons, right? So they're predictable, and we also don't want, you know, teachers accidentally creating 2 different live sessions for 2 different courses at the same time. So we're going to create a set schedule that's for first semester classes, and then we know exactly if we are in this class at that time, our live sessions during the week happen. So absolutely yes.
How are teachers balancing 100% GPA and in-person blended learning? Ms. Garza, do you want to answer this question as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So when one normally thinks of this type of blended plan, at first they think of the context of teachers teaching students on site and then teaching another group of students, but that's not how it looks on their roster. So all teachers have a roster with their students, no more than 25, keeping that GLOW expectation of having our classes normally a lot less than 25 students per class. And so if a teacher has a class roster of 25 students, they have still only a roster of 25 students. So the number of students that our GLOW teachers are teaching has not increased. It just might mean that out of that 25, that 5 of those are online and 20 are on site, something to that nature. I think it's also important to understand that those 25 students, whether they're on site or online, are also together in that Canvas shell, accessing the same course materials, turning in the same assignments to the same place. The teacher is grading those same assignments in the same place. So all students, whether they are on site or online, are still engaged in the same enriched virtual blended model. The word enriched virtual is a very specific term related to the type of blended learning model that we've adopted, and that's why we adopted it. It's not the most fancy model, but it is concrete and it's teacher friendly in this moment when we need to transition with ease.
Thank you, Ms. Garza. Ms. Stewart asked what kind of test, what kind of COVID test would we do? We are not testing on site. Let me be very clear. We are questioning. So we will run through a series of questions that are related to symptoms and exposure. And if students have answers that are questionable in terms of symptoms or exposure or show up with a fever, we will be not having them go into campus with everybody else. We'll be holding them and calling parents to come and collect them and then connect with their physician. Ms. Hedgen, how do online only students manage lab classes? Great question. Ms. Garza, do you want to answer this question?
Yeah, absolutely. So it depends on how we're defining lab. So I currently teach online classes as an adjunct professor, and labs look a lot different for different courses. So if I'm teaching an online science course, labs are very manipulative online. So the expectation would be that there would be for online students a type of manipulative activity where you may move things on the computer screen to help simulate some of the activities and hands-on pieces that are happening within the biology lab. There are also a lot of resources out there that help us with some of those science and STEM pieces, again, that mimic that cause and effect, where you have an opportunity to virtually blow something up in your chemistry lab. So in some ways, sometimes it's safer. But there's a different type of lab here, right? So sometimes labs mean writer's labs, art labs. And in those moments, depending on the type of activity that the teacher has planned for, and that's where that strategic planning piece comes in, it may be a moment that your lab on that particular day in communication with your teacher is simply something that you can watch in live stream synchronously, just like we're doing now, and then submit your work virtually and get feedback from other students. So it really depends on how we're defining labs, but that's where that strategic planning model comes into place. But no matter what type of planning we're doing for our students, all lesson plans are going to keep in mind If a student is not able to access this on site, like another group may be able to, what opportunities are being provided to them to give them as equitable of an experience as possible?
And again, another question here, what is the emotional social learning going to be? The answer to that is we have stepped back and revisited our leadership advisory courses. We have totally revamped what those courses look like in order to transition to stronger social and emotional supports, but also stronger organizational supports, if we're going to be honest, for our students in a blended virtual environment. So we've rewritten all those standards. We have resequenced all of those in grade level sequences for all of our students and stepped back to make sure that we are meeting those needs. The Student Leadership Network, or the Young Women's Leadership Network, in which we are a part of, has really put a lot of time and energy into helping us with resources to best support our girls in this virtual learning experience. And we've taken all of that, we've taken our knowledge in-house as well and stepped back and really revamped that. So Leadership Advisory is the home of social and emotional learning, and that will look very, very, very different next year than it has in the past. But in addition to that, we have our school social worker, and we have 7 social work interns that are on campus with us next year, entirely here to support students' social and emotional needs. So we will be having one-on-one therapy sessions. We will have small group sessions for everything from anxiety management, body image, conflict resolution, mindfulness, frustration control. There are a lot of different small groups that will be happening throughout the course of a week, managed by a lot of different really engaged people, so that we can make sure that we're really helping kids to transition effectively. Ms. Ayer asks, what happens if faculty or students are diagnosed with COVID? Will we be notified? How will quarantines be handled as far as when students and faculty can return to campus? Well, you win the award for asking the $1 million question, right? Here's the answer to that. We have been operating on campus nonstop since we went out in March. So we have been, we've had opportunities to practice our COVID quarantine protocols here on campus, and we will continue practicing those as we move forward. The reason why we are phasing students back in a really concentrated and kind of methodical way is because, really and truly, is because we want to assist with contact tracing if and when that has to happen. So we need to make sure that we have a really strong handle on where students are and who they are coming in contact with, and where adults are and who they're coming in contact with. And so we need to do this very strategically. So if somebody is suspected to have come in contact with COVID-19, the very first thing that we do is we send them home. And we tell them to stay home, monitor their symptoms, and contact their physician. We then meet virtually with them and make a list of everybody who they have come in contact with over the last 48 hours on our campus, and or anybody they suspect that they might have been close contact with without a mask, maybe if they weren't in a meeting with them, but they walked past them in the hallway, right? We make a list, and then we contact every one of those people and let them know that they potentially were exposed to COVID-19. And what happens then is they go home until we have a confirmation. So we initially remove the person, and then we remove anybody who might potentially have been impacted. And then we wait. We wait until one of two things happens. Either one, somebody gets a negative COVID result, and then everybody knows that the problem has been resolved and we come back together, or and or their symptoms resolve, right? And they can come back on campus successfully. Or B, they get a positive COVID result. If they get a positive COVID result, everybody that they came in contact with has to be tested. And they have to stay out per Department of Public Health guidelines, which kind of shift a little bit, have shifted since the pandemic started. But right now, that is out for at least 10 days after the positive result, or until after that 10 days, their symptoms resolve. So it could be out longer, depending on whether or not they're still symptomatic. So that's how it will be handled, and that's how we'll handle it. We will absolutely do our best to communicate with as transparently as we possibly can within HIPAA guidelines, everybody on campus, to make sure that you know your risk exposure and your kiddos' risk exposure on campus. But there are HIPAA guidelines that limit our ability to fully share all information. So we have done that, and we will continue to do that over the course of this event. I have, just in personal sharing, I've gone into quarantine now 3 times. Once because of my own sickness, which some of you might have noticed when I was doing announcements early on in March and April, and I couldn't get through a sentence without coughing. I was really sick and had to stay out until my COVID-19 test came back. And 2 other times because of exposure in other places. So we've been very, very careful with this on campus, and we will continue to be doing so. Thank you, Layla. We appreciate this. This is a very complicated time, you're right, and it's time for us to make sure that we're moving forward in a methodical way and keeping everybody as safe as possible. So thank you for that. Sarah asked, is there a plan for how to handle students who are non-compliant with social distancing, PPE? How will you keep other students and staff safe? Yeah, this is a non-negotiable plan, right? If you are unable to keep your mask or face covering on our campus, we know we have a couple of students who have strong sensory issues, and they're in a separate program, that's in a separate zone. But if our students are unable to be compliant with that, then they can't be on campus, and that's non-negotiable. And you know, this is not something that we're going to get into a back and forth over. Ms. Garza and I have talked about this already. We are actually onboarding a new dean of students, Mr. Kirby, starting on August 1st. We're all on the same page. Here's the rule. It's a one strike and you're off campus kind of moment. We cannot play around with the severity of this situation.
And the good news is you can still access your learning. So
you just moved to online only and not on campus. Question, will social emotional small groups with counselors also be open to online students? Absolutely, 100%. Yes. If it's true for on-campus students, it's true for off-campus students. We have an inclusive model, not an exclusive model when it comes to learning and supports here on campus. And yeah, thank you. And thanks for all the support. This is a really challenging time. We're doing our personal best to make sure we meet everybody's needs and also stay as healthy as possible as a school community, because we want all of our teachers to be able to continue learning and growing with kiddos all year long and not have to go into that zone of quarantine and being out, because we want to keep learning as undisrupted as possible all year long. So Ms. Garza and I are going to hang out here for a few more minutes if we have more questions that come out. If not, stay safe, stay well, wear your masks, keep our community safe, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you so much.